Hey, it's Brian Burns. Welcome to this episode of the Brutal Truth About Sales and Selling podcast. Today we got a different kind of episode. It's kind of interview, kind of consultation. Kevin Jans, who's been on the podcast before, and he's a longtime listener, and he's in Simplifying the Complex Sale and Winning It. And he wanted to do a consultation interview and how to get into bigger accounts. So I said, let's make it an interview. That way it'll be no cost to you and everybody else can get some benefit out of it and understand how you get into bigger accounts, who should you call on, what the power structure is, what the process is, and what to avoid. So I think it's a great interview, and you can kind of see maybe some of the stuff that you might be running into. It's kind of a different market than a lot of you are into, but each of our markets have these different things where we might be calling on the wrong people. We might assume just because of a title that that's the right person, and we end up spending too much time with people that we shouldn't and just go directly and get the maximum amount of return for our investment. Before we get into the interview, I want to make sure that you're aware that Nudge.ai, they're coming out with some new capabilities about how you're connected to companies, and they've offered up a coupon code, Brutal Truth, which is the same coupon code for Pipedrive, and you get 1 month free of the professional version. So it's well worth. Give it a try, see if it works for you. I get a morning report every morning about what I should focus on. I send it off to my virtual assistants, and they work very hard for me for all the money I give them. And I get just this full pipeline, and I use the stuff that I teach in Start the Conversation, Get the Meeting as a way of getting things started. So check those both out, as well as Gong came out with a great blog this week about when to use the word I and we and where it's most effective. And it's scientifically proven. So they're doing some great research. Make sure you're checking that out. And wait to the end, and I'll sum up the interview with Kevin. Here we go. Hey, Kevin, welcome back to the show. Give us a little bit of update on yourself.
It's been an adventure over the last year or so. We've grown a lot. I've hired another salesperson. And so now our leads are coming in from different places. I mean, the bread and butter of my business for the long time was the small and mid-sized companies. And now we're starting to get, I know we're getting leads from larger companies because their employees are spending their own personal money to use us, and they're trying to work us up the cycle, I guess we'll call it, to get to the larger companies. And that's not something I've specialized in. I know how the government buys, but I don't know how a large defense contractor buys. And so I'm working my way through that.
And what are you finding so far? Where are you getting stuck?
I'm getting stuck when I talk to the executive above the person who uses it, and he says, oh, yeah, let's make this happen. And then it goes to legal. And then it goes to procurement. The same stuff you talk about on the podcast. Yeah. And it's part. This is a funny one. Part of the problem is said, oh, this deal, for example, one of them is it's at $5,000 a year. Basically, it's a membership to our content and includes a little bit of consulting here and there. But the guy says, oh, $5,000 is too small for us. Yeah. Okay, that's a high quality problem for me, but I don't know what's the right number, because again, maybe 10% of our customers are large businesses, and they're usually a small division inside a larger company where the guy's got a company credit card. And he just said, yeah, I want this. And he bought it. And
that's an annual fee, monthly fee?
Right now, that's an annual. Right now, it's actually, there are companies that pay us $1,500 a month, but they're small companies. Yeah. So I know the bandwidth is there for the large companies. In fact, the discussion for this particular client, one of the employees who's been a podcast listener for like a year, got so frustrated that he bought this what we call a personal license, which is $100 a month himself. And he said, I want to get you through the process so we can get you an enterprise license for our organization. Their organization has 300 people, all of which need this stuff. So you do the math on that one. It's like, okay, that's a much bigger deal than I've done so far. And so I want to know, like, what's the path so I don't step on any landmines or talk to the wrong person or go out of the wrong order. And so that's why I reached out to you because I've been a customer for a while. Yeah. I got this unique puzzle I can get your advice on how to solve.
And you're talking on the sales side of these vendors. Is that true?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Some of them are business development. Some of them even like the contracts manager, because what we do, they just need to understand our perspective of it. So sometimes it's a contracts person, but the most success I've had is with the people who are the proposal manager or the business development folks. They're trying to grow the company and they use our insight to do it faster.
Okay. So you're getting a lot of interest from the reps. Is that true?
Yes.
Okay. Then you go up to their manager and what happens?
The latest one is we had a conversation last I think that was last November. And at the time, it was a $5,000 deal. That same product, we actually increased the price, is now $8,000 a year. And, we're getting there is the answer I got. At the time, he said, yeah, let's get this done in the next 30 days. It needs to go through legal. And here's a great example. You can go on our website and literally just join. And we have it's like a 4-page master services agreement that says, we're not going to steal your stuff. You're not going to steal ours, et cetera. And you just scroll through it and click yes and keep going.
Yeah.
Well, this company, they're like, well, you got to sign our MSA. And I'm like, for $8,000 a year, do I want to do that? so I got to, this is a problem I didn't see coming. So that's that happened around Thanksgiving.
And let me ask you why you didn't. Is it just a lot of work? Are you legally scared? Or you?
Actually, I'm not against doing it. What I said was, well, let's talk about that. What does yours look like? And of course, that was the task I gave to them, and it never showed up because legal's not motivated to get it done by the end of the year. Yeah. And that was last November. And I've closed 20 customers in the meantime, and so that's my frustration. But the reason
have you run into an issue that requires an agreement?
Just with these larger companies?
No. I mean in your business in general, where people either steal or copy or intrude on your IP?
Not really. And part of me is that we create so much content that we give so much of our – I tell people you can go into our community and you can download our webinars and you can download all of our slide decks and you can share them with whoever you want.
Well, I mean, here's my idea. Because paperwork slows everything down. And if it's your company and your content and your risk, why have it? I mean, I have no agreement with anybody.
Well, that's interesting.
And I hear other people who do, and they go, well, send me something that I need to sign. I go, no, you don't have to sign anything. And why do I do that? Because I know it's just going to slow it down. It becomes an excuse. It becomes a heartache. And might be how you get in there is, okay, do a month on a corporate credit card and just say, hey, we could do it annually or we could do it monthly. What's your limit per month on your corporate credit card? Because those managers probably, I've worked at those big companies, and the reps have corporate credit cards. I don't know what they can put on them. I know they put, $2,000 dinners on them, exactly. Right? I don't know how many services or stuff. And I've put Google AdWords on credit cards, and I've gotten those through. I think this is where you got to be careful with paperwork. And it's like non-disclosure agreements. I can't tell you the number of meetings I've been pulled into. Oh, you got to sign our NDA. And I literally wouldn't even read it, and I just sign it and give it back. They go, don't you want to run that by your legal? I go, nope. Because I've never seen it ever be seen again. And I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not an investor or an owner in your business, but putting paper that has to be physically signed in front of people is just asking for a delay.
It's an interesting point. So if this large business says to me, you got to sign our NDA, and
you sign it.
I'm not going to read it anyway.
Right. And
it's 40 pages.
And do you think they're going to obey it? They never do. I've had clients who have given me my competitor's slide deck after they signed an NDA. And it's just, there's so much pretension. And I can't tell you the number of times I've heard NDA in my life. And I just roll my eyes and I'm like, cut it out. And, I've had a TS clearance, top secret clearance before too. And it was like, I never learned a damn thing that anyone would care about.
Yeah.
I was just able to get into buildings that, I needed to get into, and I didn't want to know anything, and I didn't need to know anything. But because certainly in your space, in the government space, people love reasons not to do stuff. So I would back off of that unless you see a real risk there. Plus, let's face it, who is more at risk in a legal situation, you or some big company?
Yeah, that's true.
And I always looked at it that way. And I've worked for companies where they wouldn't book a government contract and because of payment terms, or they thought it was a credit risk. I go, that all that money you have in your pocket, it's backed by these guys.
Exactly.
So if you don't think that they're credit worthy, that paper in your pocket's not credit worthy. So
yeah, they may slow pay, but they'll pay.
But let's get into the process side of it. I mean, that's probably an easy fix if it's doable for you. Is that the stumbling block? Is you give them a quote, an agreement, and then they pass it on to legal, and legal just drags their feet?
No, that's in one case. That's the one that I've gotten the farthest in.
Yeah.
The bigger problem, I think, and the one that I'm getting stuck in. I got Pipedrive, and I have my process, and again, this thing works really well with the small to mid-sized companies. Where I'm getting stuck is we have people that they're podcast listeners. They know that basically the podcast is our lockout. It just shows we have so much content we give away for free. We know this market, so you can use our help, right? Well, they get to the point they say, "Oh, well, do you provide just training and consulting?" And we do. But the problem is that the opportunity is that I realize the best customers, the most successful ones that tell all their friends about us and rave about us are the ones that they get this membership model because they realize, okay, if I wait till I need you, till my contract is on fire, then they treat me like a lawyer, or treat us, our team of 12, like lawyers. And then we put out the fire, and then we go away. And so we're trying to get away from. I spent the last 5 years getting away from those kind of deals, and that's why the model works for us. Is that the smaller companies go, I know that I'm going to need you. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I'm going to need you, and I'll basically pay a monthly retainer for the content and everything else to do that. Well, the large businesses, their habit seems to be, and this is why I want to ask you because you've worked with a lot of them. Their habit seems to be, well, when I have a crisis, I don't care what it costs. I'll pay you $1,000 an hour when there's a crisis. Well, the problem with that is that, number one, I'm waiting for them to call, and that's not the business I'm trying to grow. Yeah. And number two, that beats up on my team. What makes our team so successful, they love somebody calls before they go to a meeting. They say, hey, I'm going to meet with the government on this issue. The CEOs and the contracting officers in the room, what do you think I should ask them? Those are the conversations that our team really thrives in.
Yeah, so they're in repair mode, not prevention mode.
Oh, I like that. Exactly. Yeah. So you use another one of your mindset. And so how do I get the large business to get in that habit?
Yeah, I think, because the problem with the monthly thing is you got to get them committed to a year, not go month to month. Pay month to month maybe, but commit to a year. And that's kind of how I would focus it, that it's a service. It's a professional service on demand, and really sell the prevention side of it. It's like, okay, your reps need to be prepped before the end of the quarter, because at the end of the quarter, it's kind of too late to get all this stuff prepared. They got to know what they're getting into. When you're looking at your forecast, you need to talk with somebody to understand faster, easier ways to get the order through. I think I would tell them a story of, what does a quarter look like to you? At the first month of the quarter, it looks all great, happy ears, everyone's smiling, the sun is shining. And then all of a sudden, by the end of the quarter, you're finding out all these reps and certs have to be done, all these sole source justifications have to be written, all of these 3 bids have to be submitted. Oh, you didn't include that in the price and the discount and all of this stuff. And all of a sudden, your forecast melts down, deals slip. Some competitor comes in with an easier contract vehicle and steals the deal away from you. I think if you talk to them about that this is a lifestyle. This is not a fire drill. This is not, life insurance. This is, something that you need every day.
I like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now you got me thinking in terms of the prevention versus the repair. That's
I would tell
which
them
is funny. My sales are like that
about that, because it's like once it goes off the rails, because no one calls me about prevention. Everyone calls me when a deal is off the rails and in the ditch, and they go, Brian, how do I get it out of the ditch? And it's like, well, it's a lot harder to get it out than to not put it in, because
exactly.
Right. It's like that, the agreement. Okay, don't give them the agreement. All of a sudden the deal moves faster. It's prevention. And I think you got to kind of future pace them through a quarter And it's like, because they all know it. Every sales manager knows the quarterly thing, and they all forget it. Their memories are very short. They're under tremendous pressure. But if you bring it back to them, they will remember. And I think yours is a timing-based business. I think like October 1st would be your sprint time. You go like, Christmas in September didn't happen, did it? This is how it can happen next year. And for those listeners who don't know, Christmas in September is when that's the government fiscal year. So there's fallout money that's either spent or lost out of people's budgets. And people plan for it a year in advance.
Yeah, particularly when there's a delay in getting a budget like there was this year. So now they're spending all of their money in the last 4 months of the fiscal year.
That's it.
So our consulting is going through the roof right now because they all need help to get their work done.
Right. And you try and get things that are yearly based stuff. And if you explain that to them and you show and demonstrate your value, and your history, a manager would love this. And you put together like a SaaS product, software as a service. You say this is professional services as a service, which has both content, training, and consulting. And so that your reps, before they quote, can talk to somebody and say, what am I going to run into? And we can fill them in on what they're going to run into. We can review their proposal. We can tell them what the contracting officer is looking for. We can really expedite this process. And this is the ROI on it. I think if you could put that together for them, that way they won't look at it as a cost. They'll look at it as this is, forecasting gold. This is, the express route to getting the order.
Forecasting gold. I like that.
Right. Because, I've had a lot of people in the course. It's like they don't understand procurement, even at big companies. I go, well, you work at a big company. Go take your procurement person out to lunch. And I don't mean to be facetious. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
Because we all think that we can just fill out a form or enter in a page on the interweb, hit submit, and the procurement person's going to get it for us. It's not Amazon.com. It starts going through a process and it stalls, within a second. And if you don't know what that process is, that procurement person, loves to hold things up, right? Because they don't get rewarded on saving the company money. They get rewarded on doing things right.
Yeah, I get rewarded for not screwing things up.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Right, because all they care about is surviving the audit. Because when those auditors come in, they're like, oh, God, what did I do? Right? All those people working 18 hours a day looking through every order, making sure everything's legitimate and, can sustain, a legal argument. That's what they care about. Everyone thinks they want five points off, but that's the least thing they care about. They want to make sure that their job is done right.
Yeah, particularly when, as a contracting officer, my name's still, if you Google me, you'll still find contracts I signed, 15 years ago. Yeah. It's like it never goes away. And they're public documents. So yeah, that mindset is a little bit different.
It's very different. And, price was one element, but having it done right was probably your premier priority.
Yeah, and making sure that the customer gets what they need, which that's all part of the targeting I expect from the people that sell at the government. That's one of the things that we focus on. So let me wrap up one more point here on the kind of explaining how our model works, and they can get consulting and they can get training, et cetera. It's a business justification is what I've been building based on, again, your advice from the course. And one of the things that I'm running into is it ends up being really big. It's a lot of this is why we're good at what we do. So here's one of the questions I run into. We don't really have any direct competition. There is no other company that does exactly what we do. However, from the perception of the customer, they think they're, if they see us as just a consulting firm, well, there's plenty of those. So how much time should I spend in my business justification on comparing us to companies that are like a proposal company? Okay, they're loosely related to being a competitor of ours because we do proposals too, but then we do a lot more stuff than that. Plus, we're all former contracting officers. But so it's the whole. They're a tiny little square that fits inside our giant rectangle, right? How much time do I spend comparing us to companies like that, which can actually devalue what we do, versus just saying we don't have any competition and here's what we do?
I wouldn't say we don't have any competition.
Okay.
I would align with what they believe. They believe that there's a lot of people out there that do something like what you are describing. Then I would differentiate why you're different, that you were actually contracting officers. You did the job. The people that their reps are talking to or their piece of paper is eventually going to get to, we know what we want to see and what we don't want to see. And you can either, treat it like a black box and give us a call when it won't go through, right? Or yep. We can guide you to tell you exactly what you got to do so it looks the way they want, so your competitor doesn't cut you off at the knees. Because those, I'll tell you, those contracting officers, like you, don't see much difference between me and everybody else. They don't see any difference between you and everybody else. And there's a big difference, isn't there? Right?
Yeah.
Because they all know that they're different, but, you hear it all the time. Send me a quote, right? But, okay, unless they understand the difference, then they're going to go price only. Okay, you can very easily differentiate yourself there. It's like we know the exact process. There's a lot of people out there that coach or train and stuff, but they've never done it. They're working off of what's on the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
And not to say that they're bad, but they don't have the life experience. Would you get into a plane with somebody who learned how to fly on YouTube? Right?
Great analogy. You've got some good analogies today.
Well, that's what I say about sales experts. It's like when I was a sales guy, I go, did this person ever sell? Then LinkedIn came out, and I look at all their profiles, and none of them had ever sold. And I'm like, or they sold for like 2 years. Then they went to a Jim Rome seminar and then copied his stuff and became a sales expert. And that's what probably happens in your space. Because I know in DC here, there was somebody who taught, federal procurement for years, but she never worked in federal procurement. But she was very talented. I don't think there was a thing that she taught that wasn't true, but that's a whole different thing from somebody who's done it every day. I don't know. Wanda Sykes?
I recognize the name. There are a couple of them.
There's a comedian. She's a comedian. She's been on Curb Your Enthusiasm. She used to be a procurement officer up at Fort Meade. And I swear to God, I dealt with her. She was so funny. But anybody who wants to know what a procurement officer can be like, check out Wanda Sykes on YouTube. She's now a comedian, but you understand the logic and the feelings that if you don't know what you're doing, you are going blind into a tiger's den. It is, and I think you can very easily describe that. I mean, you're kind of a Boy Scout, but they know as sales leaders, especially if they've spent any time in a complex procurement cycle, that is the long pole in the tent. Getting the technical win and getting the budget allocated, that's a cakewalk compared to what you guys do to us.
Yeah, the large business that originally called us, that started me on this path of trying to really sell to these bigger companies, he had the technical sale done. And they're literally sitting in the conference room, and they're like, yeah, we want this, let's do it. And he says, okay, like the sales guy says, okay. And then the government customer says, well, what do we do next? And the guy with the company, who's now our customer, says, well, I thought you knew.
Yeah, it's the blind leading the blind.
Exactly. They have no idea how to buy things.
No, so that's no one believes me when I say this. But the bigger the organization, nobody teaches people. You never went to how to buy stuff school. As an employee, right? You have all this responsibility to get things done. There's all this technology and tools and capabilities to get it done. But, the organization is set up for you not to spend money. And that process, and even the managers, and I've told the story of being in a CEO's office with my CEO, and we had this $2 million order that he had signed but wouldn't give it to us. And he goes, do you mind if I call my board before I get? I go, what? We looked at each other, and it was like 7:30 at night. We were ready to go get steaks and martinis. It was not like we were like, I already had the money spent. I was going to stop by the dealership on the way home, but and thank God, the board just, or one of the people on the board just said, yeah, it seems like it makes sense. I think he just wanted to cover his butt, and it wasn't a formal approval. It was just kind of a checkbox. But on the government side, everything is formal.
Yeah.
The documents. And I think you can certainly bring up that pain very quickly with a sales leader. And I think the prevention argument is the way to go. And it's like, look, you call us up at the end of September, and you'll probably be willing to pay $10,000 an hour to get that deal through. You will. Of course you will. Because it's slipping into October might mean someone's career. But, why not do it right from the beginning and teach your reps what they have to do? Because they don't know this. And you know why they don't know it? Because their customers don't know it. It's not like they're dumb. Anyone's not been schooled. Well, they haven't been schooled, but it's not like it's innate in anybody to know how to do this.
Yeah, I took a month-long military training when I first started working with the Air Force, and it covers everything in the Air Force you need to know as basically as a lieutenant coming in. And I think one day was on the procurement cycle, right? And maybe like a half an hour of that was whether or not you interact with the contracting officer. So yeah, of all the stuff we learned, that was like one tiny little piece. And to be fair, most people don't need to know all of it, but if you don't know any of it, that's why their customers don't know how to buy.
Right. It's just it's not taught, and it's almost prevented. It's almost like a secret within every company how they get things done. And people don't know it, and reps think that they just send a quote in and it sails through. And if it doesn't, they think it's no decision. It's like, no, it got stuck because no one knows how to do it. And educating people, and that's kind of what I do in the course, but that's kind of what you can do for your clients, because your expertise is in a particular market where your clients, I think you're undercharging for what you're doing.
Yeah, and that was part of the problem. Is I hear that sometimes that I don't have a baseline to set it against. I can't say, most people that do this charge X, and so I just keep doubling the price every year, and people keep buying it. So, and what we do is the people who buy whenever you buy in, that's your price.
Yeah.
So there are people that are paying like 20% because they bought into the concept 4 years ago.
Right.
And so it's been kind of fun.
And those accounts that you're talking about, because I've worked with and competed against them, and I got acquired by the largest IT provider to the government, and they had no idea. It was just mayhem trying to get deals through. And, I had been doing it for a long time, and I kind of anticipated it, but the reps in general, they just didn't know. And the amount of money we're talking about is astronomical. And a lot of times they use resellers just because they know a little bit more than the reps, or they have the contract vehicle in place and they've got a little bit more practice at it, but they're giving up a lot of points to do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder how. I wonder where their price point is for us, because I'll have a half-hour conversation with somebody that saves them, and I'm not making this up. This is real. It's actually happened. Half-hour conversation saves somebody $1.5 million.
Yeah,
and that happens a lot with our team. And I'm like, these are real. Like, the ROI is like in the tens of thousands of %. It's not like
what I would do, and I have no dog in the fight. I would separate out the content from the consulting, and maybe bundle in N number of hours, and then after that it's a next bundle, and that way you give them some choices, and then you could maybe make it time based, where it's like we'll get back to you within 24 hours, we'll get back to you within 48, 72. Some service level agreement as a way of building up the deal, so that you can kind of sense from them, what's important to them, because the end of the quarter you could charge helicopter or private plane fees. Right?
Yeah, it's funny. I know. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. That's funny.
But I would try and not get it into the per hour basis, because then you get into billables, and what you want is kind of a prepaid systematic payment.
Yeah, the way we have it set up now for what we call the premium membership is they get 3 hours a month included in, but as we say this, I think we're undercharging, because that's $800 a month. And for a large company, they spend that, and then they use the hours, and that's okay. That's what we want. We want them using it, because if they wait until there's a crisis, then it creates all those problems I already talked about.
Yeah, cool. What else can I help you with?
Those are the high points. This is huge. I got a page of notes. Cool. Yeah, I guess the last question, and just because I got another 2 minutes here, who do I go just to a procure, like I would on the government side? I go to the contracting officer, I go to the procurement team, I figure out who those folks are. When I'm trying to unpack this, what's the best place to start?
You've got to get who cares about this is the sales leader. So I would work my way up, because the reps love you, because they're the ones who are lost. The manager certainly cares. At that price point, they could probably put this on their card, or would have purchasing authority for it. If they don't, then one level up, probably a VP of sales. But at a huge company like the ones that we were talking about, probably only one level up would be fine. Don't go calling and at a company, you don't contact procurement about anything that isn't in procurement already.
Okay, perfect.
Because they look at you as a pound of flour. Right? Unless they've already bought flour, they're not buying any more flour. And when they buy more flour, they want it cheaper than the last time they bought flour.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. So you want them to fill out a purchase request with your quote that's pre-negotiated and time-based to get it done. And at those prices, it should go pretty quick.
Okay, so maybe I'm overthinking this.
You are, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
Well, thanks for your help. I always appreciate getting advice.
Hey, I hope you enjoyed that. I kind of like that approach. Maybe I'll do more of these, but it's great to hear from people who are out there doing different things, and also who have gone through the course and are getting a lot out of it, because the course is not just a bunch of videos. The office hours and being able to submit your questions and get answers immediately, and hear what other people are doing at different parts of the sales process, because so much of this is prevention versus repair. I only get repair questions. Speaking of which, I did a webinar this week that I then put onto my YouTube channel. So just search Brian Burns Sales Podcast on YouTube. You can see it. It's about 45 minutes. A lot of great stuff about how to get into accounts, how to control the process, how to handle all the the top 5 questions that I've been getting, and they were asking the same things. So I hope you enjoyed that. Also, make sure you're checking out Discover.org. They're doing a lot of great work about how to build your pipeline, and they've got a lot of great examples and research that they've been doing. So discoverorg.com, sign up for their ebook. They got a lot of ebooks on how to move from a B to an A player. They've done a lot of work with Gong, so glad to see that they're teaming up. And also CoVideo. CoVideo is the way to send video email. Super simple. Give it a shot. Try it out. See if you like it. People are having actually more luck with the second one as a follow-up, because it shows a much more personalization of the video. And I did an interview on the B2B Revenue Leadership podcast with the founder of the company, and he's talking through how they've changed their approach. They're doing less cold calling, more LinkedIn social outreach. They're finding much more effective and highly personalized video emails are really kicking it off. And I'm seeing the same thing with the students in the class. Make sure you sign up for the class if you're interested. Go to b2brevenue.com. I also have my ebook there, so you get a free copy of my ebook. It describes how companies make decisions. Now, so much of this is not just knowledge, it's actual practice. The knowledge is the easy part of selling. It's the practice. It's a lot like cooking or comedy. There's a million cookbooks out there. There's a million sales books. It's not knowledge. I mean, a lot of you have the knowledge. It's the practice, the implementation of the knowledge that really makes the difference. And also, I've stepped it up on the Sales Questions podcast, so feel free to submit questions. I'm not going to reply to you directly. I'll reply to you via voice on the podcast episode. So that's how I do it. I'm kind of getting overwhelmed with requests. Getting good questions, though, so I'm not complaining. I really appreciate it. And I'm going to do a bonus episode probably this week to describe exactly a prize that I'm going to give that's going to hopefully encourage you and teach you how to share stuff on LinkedIn and benefit the podcast. But you'll be highly rewarded for it. So I really appreciate you listening. And on the YouTube channel, I'm kind of doing the walk and talks again, where, I exercise every morning, and I started, I got this selfie stick with a Bluetooth remote. And, when ideas come to mind about questions or better ways of articulating answers, I record them and I'm putting them on YouTube. I'm sharing them on LinkedIn. So I appreciate anybody who likes, comments, and shares them on whatever social channel that you prefer, whether YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever you happen to live. I'd really appreciate that as a way of supporting the podcast. And check the show notes out for all the free stuff that the partners are bringing to the table that really got some great stuff. On the B2B Revenue Leadership podcast this week, I've got an author who wrote the book Play Bigger. He's got a new book out, and I think it's going to be free this week on Amazon. So check out that interview. He's a great guy, Christopher Lockheed, I believe is how you pronounce it. He's a lot of fun to talk to, and it's all about, instead of just trying to be better, be a little bit different so that you can really differentiate yourself and be able to be more successful without working your butt off. That's it. I appreciate this, and we'll see you next time.